Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, people. Review of the week time. Probably going to get this out actually Sunday night because I've got videos planned for both channels tomorrow morning. And when I say both channels, I mean have a look there on screen. That is my crime channel. It's been neglected over the last couple of months, just been busy with this and other things. But True Crime with G-Man, leave a link in the description. Just got finished recording. I've been a busy boy today. I've done a live stream. I recorded over an hour episode of True Crime. Now we're doing review of the week. I've got another video planned after this. So, yeah, we don't stop, not even on Sundays. But I would appreciate if you could go over there, give it a subscribe. I'll have a video out first thing in the morning. It's recorded, just needs to process. And you'll have that. I'll also have a look there on screen real quick. Joe Stunner Boxing, 190 subs, right? Long time subscriber of mine, recently just started his own channel. Almost at 200 subs. You have it there on screen, just literally Joe Stunner Boxing. If you could go over, give it a little subscribe, see if we can get him up to 200. I really appreciate that. Now, let's talk boxing. So obviously Joe Smith Jr. defended his title last week, WBO title, against his opponent, whose name was like Stevens. Couldn't get his last name. I can't remember it because I don't have it in front of me. But he did what was needed. He went in there, was able to get him out of there in 9 rounds. Now Joe Smith Jr., Frank Warren was stating that Anthony Yarde is next in line. Now obviously this opponent wasn't the original opponent. It was obviously meant to be Callum Johnson. We know what happened there. So that fight got binned and this guy stepped in. Now some people might say, well gee, are they going to reschedule the Callum Johnson fight? As far as I'm aware, they probably won't, because it wasn't a mandatory title defense. It was just a simple, voluntary. So with voluntaries, you're kind of stuck there because you'll have to give him a rematch if you win, but if you pull out, there's really no comeback. And for Callum Johnson, he's getting up there in age. This may very well have been his last crack at a world title, potentially could be, which is sad in that regards. But Frank Warren's been saying that Anthony Yarde is next in line. Now I know I believe he's ranked number 1 with the WBO. That doesn't mean you're mandatory, but with Frank Warren's relationship with the WBO, I would imagine they will probably call it. They'll probably call it mandatory and say, right, you're next in line. Which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. It's like Joe Smith beat Maxim Vlasov in a very competitive fight. You would think at the very least they would say, and I thought Vlasov won, you would think at the very least they would say, right, if you're not going to give him an immediate rematch, right, with Joe Smith, because it was a close fight, right? You'd think if they're not going to give an immediate rematch, give him a final eliminator. They've done it with the IBF in the past, like Kid Galahad when he lost to Josh Warrington. His next fight was a final eliminator, and he was mandatory when he lost to Josh Warrington. So why don't they do something like that for Vlasov? I doubt very much they will. They'll probably just announce Anthony Yarde as mandatory challenger. But I do find that that's a bit, crap from the WBO. The fact that he lost for a vacant title, and they don't even give him the grace in saying, right, you lost a competitive fight, here's what we'll do. We won't give you an immediate rematch, but just have the final eliminator, fight Anthony Yarde. They won't even probably do that. As far as Anthony Yarde versus Joe Smith, Joe Smith's an interesting one. He's not going to box with Anthony Yarde, and I think that would give him more trouble if he boxes, but he is massive at light heavyweight. He's a big puncher. And with Yarde, with Anthony Yarde, when he turned pro, I knew he'd very little amateur fights, but you could see the athleticism, you could see the talent that was there. Now, he was fighting cream puffs. He was fighting bin men. That's fair to say. They were horrible, the opponents he was fighting. They were learning fights. They really did keep the learning fights going too long. And what I mean by that is they kept it at that low level and then went straight to world, right? They should have really, I think they missed the boat by not just stepping it up slightly. I remember when Yarde fought that guy, was Travis Rivas, was that his name? On that card in the Royal Albert Hall a couple of years ago. The original opponent for that was someone who Vodcek just fought. Now that would have benefited Anthony Yarde night and day if that fight had actually took place. Because that guy was durable enough, and he was just off losing to Vodcek, who was world champion. He'd lost to Vodcek, but he'd lost to him before he won the world title. Nevertheless, he lost to Vodcek. Vodcek was a good fighter. So it would have benefited Anthony Yarde something brilliantly. Right, never happened. Went straight to Kovalev, then went down to Lyndon Arthur, lost that fight, and then obviously avenged it. So we never really got to see kind of any development in regards, going up the level slightly. When they tried to do British level, they wanted Frank Buglioni, but Jose Burton was offered, never happened, etc., etc. And they ended up fighting Kovalev, lost, right? So Yarde, I think it's fair to say now, is above British level. But he's now in his 30s. He'll be 31, I think, this year. So you got to figure, are they running out of time with Anthony Yarde? Because he's only got, a couple more years left, you would imagine. Certainly of his athletic prime, if it's not already starting to wane now. He is very athletic, Anthony Yarde. And I'd say he's got a couple more years, but you never know. So they probably would be looking to get him in for a world title shot this year. If it is against Joe Smith is one of the weaker champions. Well, he is, in my opinion, he is the weakest champion at 175 pounds. That being said, he is still a very, very good fighter with quite the resume. Like, it's actually not a bad resume he has. He's got wins over Lito Alvarez, Jesse Hart, Vlasov, disputed, but a win nonetheless. Hopkins, Fonfara, someone else in there as well. But he's got a Jesse. I think I said that already. But, it's a decent resume for Joe Smith. So, him against Yarde, I'll be picking Joe Smith. Personally, I will be picking Joe Smith to win that fight. But make no mistake about it, it's definitely an interesting one. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. Depends where that fight is. Will they do it in the UK? Would Joe Smith travel to the UK to fight Anthony Yarde? Or would they have to... Remember when they were talking about Kovalev? They were talking about doing it in the Emirates Stadium. I mean, that was reaching. I think that was Tunde who said that. But, yeah, that was reaching. Elastic don't stretch that far. In terms of other news we've had today, Canelo's next opponent. This is what I'm curious about this, right? Canelo's next opponent reportedly could be one that a lot of boxing purists are not going to like. It's recording to ESPN. Now, what does that mean with regards boxing purists are not going to like it? Some people were speculating that it could be Charlo. I don't mind that, and I don't think other purists would mind that too much. Would I favour Canelo? Heavily favour Canelo to win the fight. Heavily. But I do think Charlo could do a better job than potentially Billy Joe Saunders did. I do think that. I think he could maybe even do a better job than Caleb Plant did. Potentially. So I don't dislike that fight. Do I think Canelo will win? Yes. Charlo, he hasn't looked amazing at 160 apart from a couple of fights. He's done the job, but that'll be at 168 definitely. I don't dislike that fight. Bivol, you think boxing purists would love that fight. Bivol's a proper boxer. Guys like that, Demetrius Andre, again, I don't think that fight's going to happen, but their fights I don't really mind. They're names that have been thrown around. What I'm worried of is here, and I wouldn't like this, is if they get someone like a Kamaru Usman, is that how you pronounce his name, or a Jorge Masvidal in. I really wouldn't like that, and that's what I'm worried about when I read that and I see like they're saying people are not going to like it, because what else is it? Potentially, some people were saying Joe Smith, people won't like that. Yeah, like I'd favour Canelo heavily over Joe Smith. Joe Smith's, would be an easy target for Canelo, and Canelo wouldn't have to go looking for him. But Joe Smith is very big for light heavyweight, as I just said there. He definitely have a size advantage over Canelo. He wouldn't really try and box with Canelo, but he can definitely bang. So I'd pick Canelo over Joe Smith, but I wouldn't be saying this is a disgrace. It'd be like, imagine Canelo announced Zach Parker next or Lerone Richards as his opponent next. I'd be like, what? Are you taking the what? I would be like that, because I'd be like, they've done literally nothing. I mean, Lerone Richards, yeah, don't get me wrong, he's had a good win over Gongora, but that's like there. Canelo was there. You know what I mean? I'm just hypothetically saying that. I would be kind of a bit like, what? But opponents that I'm thinking of, and even Triple G to that, I'd just take the Triple G fight for what it is at this stage if it happens. Do I want to see it? Not particularly. I would watch it, probably be on the zone, but I'd just take it for what it is at this stage, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be as hyped as, well, I wouldn't be that hyped for it, but I wouldn't be as hyped as I would be for the other two fights. And this is interesting, right? And this is why, and of course it would be the WBC again, and these rankings are just absolutely, this right here is just so flippin' just typical of the WBC, right? Callum Smith is now the WBC number one contender in the light heavyweight division. He's had one fight against Lenin Castillo, and he's now number one ranked. I mean, what? These rankings are a joke. Like, they actually are taking the... I've nothing against Callum Smith, but like, you have one fight at that weight division and you're already number one ranked. Let's have a look at the light heavyweight, WBC light heavyweight rankings. I'll just bring it up here. Light heavyweight rankings. Let's have a look and just see. Just so I can just gauge who else is in that division. Now, it might not be updated fully, but... As in, it might not be updated fully on their page, but let's just have a little look-see and see who else is there. right? So let's see. So at light heavyweight, you got Brown and Smith was number 2. So Boatsi, Yarde, Ming, I've seen him. McCalkin. Okay, to be fair, I'm gonna say actually to be fair, the level, their top 10 is not amazing, but nevertheless, I mean, like, he's ahead of Joshua Boatsi, who's been fighting consistently at WB I think he's won an international title, but still, how can you give Anthony Yarde, that rankings is garbage, by the way, at light heavyweight. Yeah, it's not great at all. They don't even have Zuru. Now I know Zuru is WBA mandatory, but how in God's name would you not? Hang on a second, how could? Because they've done this before. Like, there's been times where there's been mandatories ranked with other sanctioned bodies, but they've still been in different sanctioned bodies. They don't have Zulu ranked at 175 pounds WBC, but yet he's not like an interim champion as far as I'm aware, or anything like that with the WBA. So bizarre. But Callum Smith, they'll probably make him fight an eliminator, and I say probably, because you'd imagine they would. I mean, him versus Beterbiev, Callum Smith ain't beating Beterbiev. He's not even beating Beterbiev. Let's have a look, see at some of the other things we have going. It's an interesting one. Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano for Katie Taylor's undisputed lightweight title. Penciled in potentially for the 30th of April at MSG. He's actually been talking, Eddie Hearn, with Jake Paul. Jake Paul obviously manages Amanda Serrano, and she's been very complimentary of Jake Paul, you know. And I was glad to hear Amanda Serrano said, I think it was just before Christmas, that she's now officially a millionaire. And that's nice to hear when these fighters, male or female, make a nice amount of money, that they can live comfortably. Her against Taylor, me personally, I would heavily back Amanda Serrano to win that fight. Heavily. She is apparently from New York, which will help, but there is a large Irish contingency, as many people know, especially in that part of the States, you know, Boston, Massachusetts, New York kind of region, especially around the East Coast. And they would pack MSG. Probably wouldn't do it in the big one, they'd probably do it in the smaller one, but nevertheless, they would still get a large amount of Irish fans in there. And they will be cheering every punch Katie Taylor lands solidly. And that can influence the judges, make no mistake about that. Definitely make no mistake about that. Other news. Let's have a look. See here. Eubank Jr. It's now official that he will. The fight is rescheduled for Cardiff, so it is taking place in Cardiff. Apparently, Mark Dreadful is about to bin some of the restrictions that they have over there. So likelihood is that fight should take place. Touch wood, no questions asked. So let's wait and see on that. Robert Hellenius is quoted with Sky Sports saying that he feels he's pretty much ready for anyone. I'm going to quote him here. Of course, I feel I would beat Tyson Fury. He looked great fighting against Wilder, but he wouldn't find as much less favourable style against me. I would knock Fury out. Easier style for me than Alexander Usyk. Hellenius was knocked out not too long ago by Gerald Washington. I'll put that in context, alright? Hellenius can bang, no doubt, but he would get lit up by... Look, Hellenius is having an Indian summer in his career. Yes, he beat Kalnacki. Fair play. Good win. Both times. The second fight, he looked brilliant. Or Kalnacki just looked atrocious. Make of that what you will. But I would not be picking him over... I wouldn't be picking him over any top 10, to be honest with you. I wouldn't. And some good news with regards to Filip Hrgović and the IBF. Tony Oka... He's accepted it. He will. Well, he has here. He's accepted the final eliminator against Filip Hrgović. This is according to Kelly Sauerland. Winner will become mandatory for Alexander Usyk's title. I'll just talk about this real quick. I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised. I just didn't... I don't know. Something was telling me that just Yoka wasn't going to take this. That he was probably going to go and fight Bacoli anyway. But I'm glad. I'm very happy that he's taken this fight. I like this fight. I think both guys... You know, they know each other from the amateurs. They will be familiar. Yoka has definitely changed his style up since the amateurs under Virgil Hunter. He looked okay. His jab looks very good, actually, with Virgil Hunter. I have to say that now. It does. Kind of Andre Ward-esque. And Hrgović I've been impressed with prior to lately. I mean, lately fighting guys like Radonic, coming in the ring, probably I'd say about 10 to 15 pounds heavier than he should. Because when he turned pro, he was in the 220s, and in around his optimum weight will be in the 230s. He's been in the high 240s. He can afford it because he's not fighting the best of opposition, but he will definitely need to come, and he will. He will. Whenever this fight gets announced, I believe he will come in much better shape. He knows Tony Yoka. He's fought him in the amateurs several times. He's beaten Tony Yoka in the amateurs as well, as is Yoka has beaten him. So he'll have an understanding of what he's dealing with regards to that fight. It's going to be a very interesting fight. It'll be interesting to see where it takes place. Yoka obviously is a big name in France. That's obviously where he's based. Obviously Hrgovic in Croatia. He's fought in Austrian places like that. I wonder where they'll do this fight. Would they do it in neutral ground? Would they do it in Germany? Would they do it in England? I mean, like, obviously Eddie Hearn, it's mainly Sauerland, but I think Eddie Hearn does work with Hrgovic as well. You want to talk about a good card, would you put this on AJ Usyk? If you could get enough time frame, co-main event, I mean, that would be brilliant if they could. I don't know if they get away with doing that. Maybe it would cost too much money. Maybe money might be an issue with regards how much they want and how much the show, because I think with that there's a budget. That's why you normally don't tend to get the best of undercards with AJ, but I think that's going to be a good fight. I really do. Favouring Hrgovic to win, personally. Favouring Hrgovic to win. But Yoka has improved. He has impressed me so far in his pro career. You know, I still think that there's a few questions there with regards how he deals with pressure, how he takes a shot, like stuff like that. Like, he's not really been tested. But saying that, he is hitting a lot harder. I definitely noticed that. He's sitting on his shots more. I mean, you're dropping Johan Duhaupas, who's got a very good chin, as we know, and you're dropping him in the first round at that. You can bang. You know, you've got respectable power there, certainly, because he's tough. You know, he's tough. Took 11 rounds with Deontay Wilder. He's tough. I was going to say Ryan Garcia. He's denied reports that he's looking to fight Machito Gasta or Saul Rodriguez in April. I'm kind of sick of listening to Ryan Garcia now at this stage. You know, he mentions Tank Davis, Isaac Cruz. I want to do a better job on Isaac Cruz than Tank Davis to say I'm better. If you want to say you're better, fight him. Fight him. And if you're not even going to fight Isaac Cruz, then, like, Ryan Garcia, what is he? Is he a boxer or is he a social media? You know, what is it they call them guys? You know, the people on Instagram with loads of followers, social media something, I forget the name. What is it? Influencer. Is that what he is? Or is he a boxer? Because he had one fight in the last year and he's done nothing since. You know? Ryan Garcia is talented, he's quick, he can punch a bit, makes a few mistakes technically, but he's doing zilch. He's doing zilch. You know? They talk about the lightweight division, Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ad Cambosis, Lomachenko, Tank. Where is this guy going to fight? You know, and as I said, he was talking about Isaac Cruz there before Christmas, saying he wants to do a better job and show he's better than Tank Davis. You want to be better than Tank Davis? Fight him. You know? That's my way of assessing it. You want to get better than him, go in the ring and fight him. That'll prove it. If you're better than him, you beat him. Simple as. Derek Chisora was on TalkSport during the week on Alexander Usyk versus AJ. Bear in mind, Chisora's sparred Anthony Joshua, but he shared the ring with Usyk, and he says, I think AJ wins second time around. I asked him if he watched the fight back. He said, only watched 4 rounds because he didn't like the way he boxed. I asked him what he's going to do. He said, you'll see. So, whatever that means. Now, me personally, Chisora, I wouldn't put Chisora down as the great as a boxing analyst, you know, someone who understands the concept of fight and stuff like that, as in, like, can break it down and think, oh, AJ's going to win based off of this. AJ, for me, he's been talking about getting a new trainer, which I'll talk about as well. Rob McCracken, his brother, gave a Boxing Social interview. We've pretty much confirmed, all but, that AJ is in fact getting a new trainer. Now, I have a separate video planned for this. I'm going to talk about it. We're looking likely to get the announcement this week. Eddie Hearn even said that there's some big stories coming this week. So, for me, that's kind of him pretty much saying that AJ's going to announce a new trainer this week. It's going to be interesting to see who he announced. You know, normally, I say normally, actually, with Tyson Fury, that was so sudden. But see, with Fury, it was just so sudden. Like, there wasn't even any word that he was, you know, really unhappy with Ben Davison. It was just like, he's spliffing Ben Davison, now trained by Sugar Hill. It was just like, what? Where'd that come from? With Joshua, we've known he's been on the shop for a new trainer. He pretty much didn't need to say it. Seeing him going all them different trainers in the US back in September, October, kind of told us what we needed to know. But there's no announcement of a name. He's been seeing different styles. Eddie Hearn has talked about April at the earliest for Usyk. I reckon that'll be pushed back to May or June. I reckon they will, and I reckon that if they did, it would benefit AJ because it gives him more time to settle with a trainer. If they're talking about doing that fight in April, well, we're now what? We're in the middle of January, so you're talking only a couple of months really to learn a new style, having been shown several different styles, and to get familiarised and comfy in that environment with that new trainer. I don't think that's going to work. Just not with that quick a turnaround. It did for Tyson Fury, as people correctly point out. But as I say, Deontay Wilder is such a different proposition to Alexander Usyk. It's night and day. Alexander Usyk is one of these fighters who can just read you. Like, if AJ's doing something new, he'll just be able to lock in and say, oh, he's doing this, I can adjust. With Wilder, he's just baffled if you show him a jab. Like, no, he's not a particularly sophisticated boxer. He does things okay. He's athletic, he's a tremendous puncher. He knows how to land that shot, which is a skill, the way he's able to time it right. But if you're doing one thing and they're doing another, he does struggle to adjust. So Wilder, you could, if Fury hadn't fully honed to Kronk's style in the second fight, you wouldn't have been able to tell that much, because Wilder is just so crude at being able. Like, Wilder was just befuddled when he saw Fury coming out employing them tactics. He was just like a fish out of water. So it's going to be interesting to see. An announcement today was saying that actually Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson close to being signed an agreement for 30th of April at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. That will be a unification, WBC and WBO. Oscar Valdez, that situation, and not even the fight against Conceição, I mean, that was controversial, yes. I thought he lost, but the drug test. The fact he was even allowed to participate in that fight is an absolute joke. There's no ifs or buts. And to WBC again, it would always be them. But that was a joke, the fact he was allowed to do that. So, I think Oscar Valdez, he's been showing signs prior to the Burchell fight. He looked very good in that. One makes you wonder. But he's been showing signs of decline prior, and I think Shakur Stevens is ripe for the take, and I think he's going to go. And I don't mean him. I mean he's primed to, grab the golden ticket. But I like that fight. I think it's a good fight. Eddie Hearn has declared that fight camp will take place again this summer. That's interesting. I do like the fight camp concept. I mean, like the first year, it was he kind of had to do it. Last year's were all right. They weren't they were all right. Like, they weren't amazing, but they weren't terrible either. Last week wasn't the best because it was only had one good fight on it, but they're all right. Hopefully he gets some good cards this year. It is a fun little concept, and I remember I had Nicola Hopewell on. He was a good fighter, good up and coming fighter, and she was at that, and she said it was 700, I think she said, pounds for the ticket, but she said it was worth the whole event was worth it. I mean, she had no complaints at all about it. So I think it's I think it's fun. I think it's a little gimmick, but it's fun. I mean, the camera work is never great at them, but it's not the zone's fault. I mean, you're in someone's backyard. It's not going to be straightforward to get the camera work on point. You're in a backyard, and it's not easy. But speaking of the zone, they're reportedly nearing a deal to buy BT Sport, $800 million, which would give them Premier League and Champions League rights. Now that's an interesting one, isn't it? Premier League and Champions League rights for the zone. If they get that, the subscription's gonna go up. That's a given. If they get that, that is a given that the subscription will go up, because you're talking Premier League and Champions League football. That will help the boxing so much. It will, because Premier League and Champions League, like, football is main sport in Britain. Millions upon millions of views every week. You have United playing City. You have Arsenal playing Spurs, Liverpool, Everton, right? You have them games. All eyes on them. And let's say you have fight camp, week 1. Everyone playing, all you're seeing on the breaks is fight camp. Oh, I might watch that. Fight camp, oh sure, I might watch that. Like Eddie Hearn in the zone. Well, I think more so Eddie Hearn. I'm sure he's noticed not having the big platform of Sky helping to promote his shows along. I'm sure he's noticed that, and I'm sure he's felt that. The zone, like, they can only really market through formats like IFL and Boxing Social, because the zone is subscription. If you don't have the zone, you're not really going to get it. How are you going to get it? Like, how are you going to know there's a show on if you don't have to, like, if you're just, I don't mean like hardcore, but if you're a casual fan who might like boxing now and again, you'd be like, I wonder when Katie Taylor's fighting. Oh, she fought last week. Oh, I didn't even know. What's this? You see what I mean? Like, so if it'd been on Sky, they would have all known. But being on DAZN, probably not a lot of them are going to know. In terms of Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, their first show is on February 12th this year, certainly in the UK, in Ali Pali, which I'm looking forward to seeing in a box. I really am looking forward to seeing what it looks like in a boxing format, because I know Ali Pali, I've never been, but I know it from darts over the years, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. Danny Jacobs headlining with John Ryder. Undercard's been announced. It's alright. I mean, in terms of names, they're not going to be in competitive fights. Jordan Reynolds, seen him a few times. He's fighting CJ Wood, 3-1-2. You got Cyrus Patterson on the undercard. Yeah, Cyrus Patterson's fun to watch. Ellie Scottney. I couldn't put her on my list of prospects because YouTube only lets you put 5. But her and Katie Healy, 2 to watch. I think Ellie Scottney, there's a good chance she might get a title shot this year. And I think she'll win it. I think Ellie Scottney is fantastic fighter. She's with Shane McGuigan now. She's not really been getting many knockouts, but I think the power will come now that she's with McGuigan. So I'll be definitely watching this fight, and hopefully I'll see some more improvements under Ellie Scottney because she's a fantastic little fighter. Obviously Johnny Fisher is on that card as well, big ticket seller. So his dad is big Johnny Fisher, and Johnny Fisher Jr. ain't small either, but big Johnny Fisher, man, he's a unit. He'll be selling tickets left, right, and centre. Felix Cash makes his return. Felix Cash is an interesting one, isn't he? Because I didn't think he'd beat Denzel Bentley. He did. He proved me completely wrong. I got that pick badly wrong. What's he done since? He's done nothing since. There's been rumours that he was at fight camp looking very out of shape, that he doesn't live the life right. He doesn't really do... Like, Cash has potential, but he's not really a marketable type of character. He's not really a loudmouth. He's just not a market. I wonder if Eddie Hearn is looking at him thinking, you're not in shape, you're not very marketable, you're fighting once, maybe twice a year. I'll just chuck you on a few runouts and maybe wind down your contract, and that'd be that. Because Eddie Hearn, lest we forget, he let him fight on BT Sport. Eddie Hearn never does that. So obviously with that, it was just a case of, if you lose, don't come back. If you win, I'll give you a pat on the back. You kind of like that with Felix Cash. Felix Cash is talented, he's got a bit of athleticism, but I just don't think he lives the life. And I wonder how far he will go. But we shall wait and see. I think that's pretty much it. I will leave it there. Lads and lassies, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you could, please help your boy out. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, hope you enjoy this. I normally say happy Monday, but it's going to go up tonight. I'm going to upload this tonight in the next hour or so. So enjoy that. And if you do watch it in the morning and you wait till Monday morning to watch it, happy Monday. For now, lads and lassies, peace.